I still remember the moment we unearthed the artifact. It was buried deep within the swirling dust of an ancient asteroid, a remnant of a long-forgotten civilization. The scanner's sharp beep echoed in the cramped space of the control room, a sound that felt both exhilarating and foreboding. A frequency older than our species reverberated through my body, sending a shiver down my spine. I should have known better. I should have warned my crew, but curiosity gnawed at me like a hungry beast, urging me on. As I reached out to touch it, a part of me understood the weight of what I was about to do. This was no simple relic. It was an alien black box, and it held secrets that could rewrite the history of our galaxy. I hesitated, my hands hovering inches away from its cold surface, where intricate designs glinted in the dim light. I could feel the pulse of energy emanating from it, almost alive, and I was drawn in. Before I go on, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I want to know how far my story travels across the stars. The air was thick with tension as my fingers finally made contact. In that instant, a jolt of energy surged through me, cutting past the layers of fear and uncertainty I had built over the years. I gasped, the room spinning as images flashed before my eyes. Visions of a thriving civilization, its people gazing up at the stars with wonder, and then darkness. An overwhelming wave of sorrow washed over me, and I retracted my hand as if burned. "Captain, what did you see?" A voice broke through the haze. It was Myra, my second in command, her face pale under the flickering lights. I don't know," I stammered, my heart racing, but it felt like they knew something we don't. "What do you mean?" she pressed, her brow furrowed with concern. "They were afraid," I whispered, grappling with the enormity of my revelation. "Whatever this is, it holds a power that might have destroyed them." The silence that followed was heavy, punctuated only by the soft hum of our ship's systems. We were a small crew, cobbled together for the sake of exploration, united by a desire to understand the cosmos. Yet in that moment, I felt the weight of a hidden truth pressing down on us all. The artifact was not just a relic, it was a warning. Days passed as we worked tirelessly to decipher the alien technology embedded within the box. The more we uncovered, the more I felt the urgency of our mission shift. It was no longer about exploration. It became a quest for survival. The black box was a repository of knowledge, a record of the movements of human fleets, yet it was dated to a time when our ancestors were nothing but primitive beings on an infant planet. The implications were staggering. How could something so advanced document our every shift across the stars long before we had even begun to reach them? I found myself retreating deeper into my thoughts, spiraling into the unknown as I isolated myself from my crew. The weight of the knowledge was suffocating, and the vastness of space felt even more oppressive. I would sit alone in the quiet of the observation deck, staring into the swirling abyss of stars that stretched endlessly before me. Each glowing point reminded me of how insignificant we were, yet the futility of it all ignited a fire within me. As days turned into weeks, I began to understand the significance of our discovery. The galaxy was fraught with dangers we could scarcely comprehend. The black box hinted at an ancient conflict, one that had ravaged civilizations long before our time. The echoes of war reverberated through the ages, and I feared we were next in line to be consumed. I tried to reach out to the crew, but words failed me. How do you explain to others that the very fabric of reality felt like it was fraying at the edges? I could sense their unease growing. The once vibrant conversations faded into hushed whispers. Myra, ever the beacon of calm, would catch my gaze, her worry evident in her eyes. I could sense her frustration at my retreat. "Captain, we can't keep this to ourselves," she urged one day, her voice steady yet laced with urgency. "People need to know what we're up against." I looked at her and saw the fear reflected in her expression. What if we're wrong? What if the black box is just a remnant of a dead civilization and we're overthinking this? But what if we're right? She pressed, her tone rising. If there's a chance this knowledge could save lives, we have to act. We can't just sit and wait. Her words struck a chord within me. The danger was real, and it was growing closer. We had detected anomalies in the asteroid belt, strange fluctuations, echoes of energy that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Was it merely the artifact's resonance, or was something else awakening in the shadows of space? The day it happened, everything changed. We were in the control room, analyzing data, when the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared, drowning out our panicked shouts as the lights flickered ominously. An unmistakable dread coiled in my stomach as I glanced at Myra, whose face had gone pale. "Captain, we're losing power," she shouted, fingers racing over the control panel. "Something's destabilizing the ship." My heart raced as I fought to keep my composure. I could feel the artifact pulsing, almost in response to the chaos around us, as if it was both a beacon and a curse. "Divert all power to the engines," I ordered, but the controls were unresponsive, and the ship trembled under the strain of unseen forces. The realization hit me like a hammer. The artifact had awakened something terrible. Whatever lay dormant within the cosmos was now stirring, and we were caught in its crosshairs. As the lights flickered one last time, plunging us into darkness, I understood that we were no longer mere explorers. We had become players in a cosmic game, and the stakes were higher than we had ever imagined. In that moment of chaos, I felt a surge of determination. We had to uncover the truth, to grasp whatever power this relic had bestowed upon us, and perhaps, just perhaps, turn the tide before it was too late. The silence that followed was heavy, pounding in my ears like the distant thrum of a dying star. Myra's gaze flickered between me and the artifact, the air thick with questions neither of us dared to voice. I could almost feel the weight of the universe pressing down on us, a reminder of how small we truly were in the grand tapestry of existence. "Captain, we need to analyze it," she finally said, her voice a whisper laced with urgency. But I wasn't sure if we should. What if we were not prepared for what we might uncover? The dread clung to me, wrapping around my heart like tendrils of darkness. I stepped back from the black box, feeling a chill creep up my spine. The unsettling visions still danced at the edges of my consciousness, taunting me with fragments of a forgotten past. It was as if the artifact was a living entity, beckoning me to delve deeper into its mysteries. But I hesitated, fear mingling with my curiosity. "We should secure it first," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We don't know what it's capable of." "Isn't that the point?" Myra countered, her brows knitting together. "What if it can help us? What if we're on the brink of something monumental?" "We're also on the brink of something catastrophic," I replied, my tone firmer. "We must tread carefully." As we carefully transported the alien black box to the lab, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were stepping into a storm we had no hope of weathering. My mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. What if it contained the key to an ancient power that had consumed its creators? What if it was a warning, a testament to the folly of those who dared to reach too far into the cosmos? Once inside the lab, we rushed to secure the artifact in a containment chamber, a place insulated from unwanted energies. The room felt sterile and cold, an odd contrast to the chaotic thoughts swirling in my mind. Myra and I exchanged glances, both feeling the gravity of our situation. "Let's run diagnostics," she suggested, her hands already moving to interface with the control panel. I nodded, but as she began the process, I felt a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. I watched the screens light up, graphs and readouts projecting the artifact's energy levels. But as the data streamed in, my heart sank. The readings were erratic, fluctuating wildly as if the relic was responding to our presence. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was alive, that it was aware of us. It's almost like it's trying to communicate, Myra murmured, her eyes wide with a mix of fascination and fear. Or warning us, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. We might be playing with forces beyond our understanding. Suddenly, alarms blared, flooding the lab with a harsh red light. I jumped, adrenaline surging through my veins. The screens flashed warnings, indicating a rapid increase in energy levels from the black box. "What's happening?" Myra shouted, frantically typing on the console. But it was like trying to tame a tempest. The lights flickered, and a low hum filled the room, resonating in my bones. I felt an instinctual urge to flee, but the curiosity kept me rooted in place. "Get away from it!" I yelled, but it was too late. A blinding flash erupted from the artifact, engulfing everything in a brilliant light. I shielded my eyes, and the room seemed to shake, as if the very fabric of reality was tearing apart. When the light faded, I stumbled back, disoriented. The lab was in chaos. Stations were flickering, equipment strewn across the floor, and Myra lay unmoving beneath a fallen console. Panic clawed at my throat as I rushed to her side, feeling for a pulse. Relief washed over me when I felt it, faint but steady. "What just happened?" Myra groaned, blinking up at me, confusion shadowing her eyes. "I don't know," I admitted, my heart racing. "But I think we just triggered something." The black box lay silent, its ominous aura seemingly dimmed. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was a facade, a calm before the storm. Outside, the ship's alarms continued to blare, the anguished cries of my crew echoing through the corridors. "Captain, we need to check on the others," Myra insisted, struggling to rise. I helped her to her feet, feeling the weight of my responsibility press down on me. I led the way out of the lab, our steps echoing as we navigated through the chaos that had erupted around us. As we moved through the corridors, I caught sight of my crew, their faces drawn with fear and confusion. The ship was in turmoil, systems failing as the aftershocks of our encounter reverberated throughout the vessel. Reports of failures flooded in, each more harrowing than the last. "It's spreading," a voice shouted from the comms. "The energy is destabilizing our core systems." I felt a cold dread settle in my gut. This wasn't just an accident. We had awakened something that should have stayed buried, something ancient and powerful. "We have to get to the control room," I ordered, pushing through the throngs of crew members. "We need to regain control before it's too late." As we reached the control room, alarms blared louder, drowning out my thoughts. The main screen displayed chaos outside the ship. The stars were shifting, twisting in unnatural patterns. It was as if the universe itself was reacting to the disturbance we had caused. "What is happening?" Myra gasped, her eyes wide as she stared at the chaos unfolding on the display. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling the weight of despair settle on my shoulders. "But whatever we unleashed is threatening our very existence." I felt a shudder run through the ship, and the lights flickered ominously. The control panel sparked, and suddenly an overwhelming sense of urgency consumed me. We had to act before it was too late, before the darkness that loomed outside engulfed us. "Energize the thrusters. We need to get out of here," I shouted over the din. The crew scrambled to comply, but I could feel an impending dread weighing on us like a heavy cloak. As we prepared for takeoff, I glanced back at the black box, now locked away but still pulsing with an energy that felt almost alive. I couldn't help but wonder if we were already too late, if the secrets it held would unleash a war across the stars that we were not ready to face. The ship shuddered again, and I felt the darkness creeping in, a harbinger of the chaos to come. The first catastrophe had struck, and we were merely pawns in a game far greater than ourselves. I drifted into the vast expanse of silence, the void wrapping around me like a suffocating shroud. Days turned into weeks, Time lost its meaning aboard the vessel. I had become a ghost, haunting the corridors, haunted by the faces of those who had once marveled at the stars alongside me. The black box lay in the control room, its presence a constant reminder of the calamity that was unleashed the moment I dared to touch it. Isolation clung to me like the cold vacuum of space. The crew was aware of my internal struggle, but no one knew how to reach me. Conversations faded into murmurs, and laughter felt like a distant memory. They held meetings without me, strategizing against an enemy we had yet to fully understand. I watched from the shadows, feeling like an intruder in my own life, my thoughts swirling in an abyss of uncertainty. What did I unleash? The question gnawed at me, and each time I tried to confront it, fear clawed back. I could see the strain on Myra's face whenever she caught sight of me. It was as if she could sense the weight of my unspoken guilt, a burden I wasn't ready to share. I wondered if the crew felt the same strange pull toward the relic, as if it had woven itself into the fabric of our reality. One evening, the ship's dim lighting cast long shadows against the walls, distorting the space around me. I stood by the viewport, staring out at the endless stars, each one a reminder of our insignificance. The universe felt vast, yet terrifyingly empty, like a graveyard of lost civilizations. I thought of the faces I had seen in my vision. Their expressions were forever etched in my mind. Were they warning me, or were they simply a reflection of my own fears? I closed my eyes, trying to summon the images again. The vibrant life they once held seemed so distant now, replaced by a darkness that whispered of doom. The fear they radiated was palpable, and it echoed in my own heart. I longed for connection, for someone to share the weight of this knowledge, but I was trapped in my own mind, shackled by the realization that I held the key to something greater than myself. The sound of footsteps interrupted my reverie. I turned to see Myra approaching, her eyes searching mine for answers I didn't have. "You need to talk about this," she urged, her voice steady yet laced with concern. "We can't face what's coming unless you share what you saw." I shook my head, swallowing hard. I don't even understand it myself. It felt wrong, powerful, like it awakened something we weren't meant to find. "Then let's dig deeper," she insisted, stepping closer. "You touched it for a reason. You're the only one who has experienced its power firsthand. If we're going to survive, we need to understand what we're dealing with." I wanted to scream, to tell her that I wasn't strong enough. I felt more like a liability than a leader. But her determination pierced through the fog of my despair. Maybe there was a glimmer of hope in confronting the unknown, a way to reclaim the narrative that had spiraled out of control. "All right," I finally whispered, my voice trembling. "Let's go back to the control room." With each step toward the relic, my heart raced. The control room was dimly lit, the black box sitting ominously on the table, its intricate designs pulsing with an energy that felt almost sentient. I found myself hesitating once again, fear clashing with the need for understanding. "What if it's dangerous?" I asked, my breath hitching in my throat. "It already is," Myra replied firmly, "but we can't let fear dictate our actions. We need to find out what happened to that civilization. We might find a way to prevent it from repeating." As I reached out a trembling hand toward the black box, I felt a familiar pulse of energy radiate through me. It was as if the relic recognized me, summoning me back into its depths. I closed my eyes, focusing on the sensations swirling around me, the electric thrill, the haunting sorrow, and the erratic heartbeat of a galaxy that seemed to breathe in tandem with my own. In that moment, I surrendered to the force that drew me in. My fingertips brushed against the surface, and instantly the visions returned. This time, they came like a flood, overwhelming and vivid. I saw their cities ablaze, ships spiraling into darkness, a civilization crumbling under the weight of its own fear. Faces contorted in anguish flashed before me, their eyes pleading for salvation. I gasped, pulling my hand back as the weight of their desperation pressed down on my chest. They were fighting something, I breathed, my voice barely a whisper. Something that consumed them from within. "What do you mean?" Myra asked, her eyes wide. They were afraid of something they couldn't see, a darkness that crept into their hearts. It wasn't just a war, it was something far worse. They lost themselves before they even realized they were at war. The realization struck me like a meteor, illuminating the shadows that had engulfed my mind. This was not just about survival. It was about understanding the nature of fear itself. The black box was not merely a relic. It was a warning, a testament to the fragility of life and the chaos that lurked just beyond the stars. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, but I held them back. I could not afford to be vulnerable now. "We need to warn the others," I said, determination flooding my veins. "We need to prepare for whatever is coming." Myra nodded, her expression resolute. "Together, we'll find a way. But first, we need to understand what they did wrong." The black box pulsed softly, as if acknowledging our resolve. With newfound purpose, we began to unravel the threads of its secrets, diving deeper into the history of a civilization lost to time. The darkness that had threatened to engulf me now felt like a call to arms, a reminder that the past held the keys to our future. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, but I held them back. I could not afford to be vulnerable now. "We need to warn the others," I said, determination flooding my veins. "We need to prepare for whatever is coming." Myra nodded, her expression resolute. "Together, we'll find a way. But first, we need to understand what they did wrong." The black box pulsed softly, as if acknowledging our resolve. With newfound purpose, we began to unravel the threads of its secrets, diving deeper into the history of a civilization lost to time. The darkness that had threatened to engulf me now felt like a call to arms, a reminder that the past held the keys to our future. As I looked into the depths of the unknown, I could feel a glimmer of hope igniting within me. My heart raced as we locked the containment chamber, the metallic clang echoing around us like the tolling of a cosmic knell. I couldn't shake the sensation that we were sealing away more than just the alien black box. We were trapping a fragment of history that had been lost to time, a history that perhaps was never meant to be found. Myra's eyes remained glued to the chamber, her expression a mixture of awe and trepidation. "What do you think it holds?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a breath, trying to drown out the chaos in my mind. "I don't know, but whatever it is, it's beyond us. It was here long before Homo sapiens even existed, yet it knows our movements, our history." Myra's brow furrowed. "You think it's a record, a log of what we've done or where we've been? Or a warning?" I replied, my voice trembling slightly. "What if it's a record of our failures, a chronicle of civilizations that reached too far and fell?" The atmosphere in the lab grew heavy, as if the weight of the cosmos had descended upon us, smothering our thoughts. I turned my gaze back to the containment chamber, its smooth, glassy surface reflecting both of our faces. There was something unnerving about it, something that felt alive, as if it were watching us, assessing our worthiness. "We can't just sit here," Myra urged, her voice breaking through the suffocating silence. "We need to analyze it. We need to understand what we're dealing with before it's too late." I nodded slowly, torn between my desire to uncover the truth and the fear of what that truth might bring. We were explorers, yes, but this felt different. This wasn't just a discovery. This was a potential cataclysm waiting to unfold. "All right, let's start with the data we have." I gestured toward the terminals lining the lab walls. "If we can access its interface, maybe we can decode its purpose." We set to work, fingers flying over screens, the sounds of our keystrokes echoing in the sterile room. As we delved deeper into the black box's architecture, strange images and sequences began to fill the screens. Star maps, celestial alignments, and cryptic symbols that sent chills racing down my spine. It felt as if we were peering into the mind of an ancient civilization, one that had once thrived among the stars and had perhaps come to an end much like we were teetering on the edge of. "Look at this," Myra said, her voice rising with excitement. She pointed to a series of symbols that pulsated on the screen. "These coordinate points, they map out our fleet movements over the past century." I leaned in closer, my heart pounding in my chest. "And this?" I gestured toward another sequence that displayed intricate patterns. "What does it mean?" "I don't know," she confessed, her brow knitting in concentration. "But it seems to be calculating trajectories, intersections of space and time." A profound silence enveloped us as we continued to work, the atmosphere thick with tension and anticipation. Each moment felt like a step deeper into an abyss, a descent into the unknown. I tried to focus on the task at hand, but the weight of the artifact loomed heavily over my thoughts. Was it a key to enlightenment or a harbinger of doom? Hours passed in a blur, the sterile glow of the screens illuminating our faces in shades of blue and green. Just as I began to lose myself in the patterns, a sharp alarm pierced the silence, jolting us both from our reverie. "What now?" I demanded, glancing at the screens displaying erratic readings. "The containment field is fluctuating," Myra shouted, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "It's like it's reacting to something." Before she could finish, a violent surge of energy rippled through the lab. The lights flickered, and I felt a primal instinct kick in. "Get back," I shouted, moving to shield Myra as the room trembled around us. The containment chamber exploded with a flash of blinding light, illuminating the lab. I shielded my eyes, heart racing as everything I had feared began to materialize. Dark shadows danced around us, shapes twisting and warping as if the black box was trying to reach out, to connect with us on a level we couldn't comprehend. "Captain," Myra screamed, her voice cutting through the chaos, "we need to get out of here." But my feet were rooted to the ground, held captive by a force stronger than my will. A part of me wanted to flee, but another part, an ancient, primal part, was drawn in by the unmistakable allure of the unknown. It was a call, echoing through time and space, resonating in my very being. "No," I shouted, forcing myself to take a step toward the chaos. "We can't abandon it. We need to understand what it wants." As the energy surged, I felt something shift within me, a connection, a flicker of understanding just out of reach. Visions began to flood my mind, images of stars collapsing, civilizations rising and falling, and a voice, distant yet familiar, whispering truths I couldn't quite grasp. "Captain, please," Myra's voice shattered the reverie. "We have to go now." The urgency in her tone pulled me back to reality. I took a deep breath, my instincts battling against my curiosity. The chamber continued to pulse, a heartbeat of a long-dead civilization that echoed a warning through the void. With every ounce of will, I tore my gaze away from the artifact and rushed toward Myra. Together, we sprinted for the emergency exit, the tremors of the lab intensifying as we fled. The fear clawed at my insides, but beneath it all, a new resolve began to take root. The universe was unraveling before us, and we were caught in the eye of a storm that had been brewing long before we ever took our first steps into the darkness. I recalled the faces from my visions, their eyes wide with terror, as if they had foreseen our fate. It was a burden I could not shake, and it gnawed at me, reminding me that in this vast expanse, we were merely fleeting whispers. It was then that I felt it, a flicker of energy pulsing from the black box, a resonance that seemed to echo within me. My heart raced as I opened my eyes and turned back toward the control room. The relic called to me, its silent urgency impossible to ignore. I had avoided confronting it for too long, but now fear morphed into a sense of duty. Perhaps it held the key to our survival, a glimpse into the past that could illuminate our path forward. As I approached the black box, the air around me thickened. Tendrils of energy crackled, and I could almost hear the whispers of those who had come before, warning me, guiding me. My fingers trembled as I reached out to touch it, the cold surface radiating an ancient power. In that moment, the weight of my crew's lives pressed heavily on my shoulders. I had to understand, for their sake. The instant my skin made contact with the relic, visions flooded my mind. I was transported to a time long before humanity, to a galaxy where civilizations flourished and fell like autumn leaves. I saw vibrant cities, their spires reaching for the stars, and then I witnessed their destruction, cataclysmic events and cosmic battles that left nothing but ashes in their wake. As I floated through this tapestry of history, I heard voices echoing through the corridors of time. They spoke of hubris, of the dangers of seeking knowledge without understanding the consequences. In that chaotic whirlwind of images, one truth became painfully clear. We were not the first to tread this path. Empires had risen and collapsed, drawn into the vortex of their own ambitions. The black box was not merely a relic, it was a warning, a safeguard against the darkness that lurked within the universe. I gasped as the realization struck me. The very thing I had awakened was a harbinger of doom, but also an opportunity for redemption. I stumbled backward, the weight of the visions still pressing upon me. My breath came in gasps as I fought to regain my composure. I had to share this with my crew. They needed to understand the gravity of what we faced and the choices we must make. But as I turned to leave the control room, doubt crept back in. What if they blamed me? What if they saw me as the source of our impending destruction? With a deep breath, I steeled myself. They deserved the truth, and I needed to be their leader, not just a vessel for despair. I stepped into the meeting room where Myra and the others gathered. Their faces turned toward me, a mixture of concern and hope shining in their eyes. I felt the intensity of their gazes, and for a fleeting moment, I hesitated. But then I remembered the echoes of the past, the warnings that resonated within me. I have seen what lies ahead, I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. The relic, it's a warning. Our fate is intertwined with the mistakes of those who came before us. We must act wisely, or we risk repeating their errors. The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Myra stepped forward, her expression resolute. "What do we do?" she asked, and I could see the determination in her eyes. It was the spark we needed. "We must harness its knowledge," I replied, feeling a sense of clarity wash over me. "We must understand what we are up against and find a way to turn this tide before it consumes us." As I spoke, I felt the energy of the crew shift. Hope flickered in their eyes, and the shadows of doubt began to dissipate. Together, we could confront the darkness and uncover the truth behind the relic. The black box was no longer just a symbol of our fears, it was the key to our survival. I felt a glimmer of purpose ignite within me, a sense of belonging that had eluded me for so long. We were not alone in this fight. We were a collective, bound by the shared weight of our choices and the responsibility to shape our destiny. The echoes of the past surrounded us, urging us to listen, to learn, and to evolve. As we gathered around the black box, I took a deep breath, ready to delve into its depths once more. The universe was vast and uncertain, but together we would navigate its mysteries. We stood on the precipice of something monumental, and the stars above bore witness to our resolve. I could feel the tension in the air as we began our investigation of the alien black box. The sterile lab around us felt hollow, as if the very walls were holding their breath. I couldn't shake the thought that we were about to peel back the veil on something far greater than ourselves. Myra and I stood at the precipice of discovery, but the weight of responsibility hung heavily on my shoulders. What if we were meddling with forces we could hardly comprehend? Here, I think I've accessed its mainframe, Myra said, her voice breaking the silence. She leaned closer to the terminal, her fingers dancing across the keyboard, bringing data to life on the screen. A cascade of symbols and diagrams flashed before us, each one a tantalizing hint at the secrets hidden within the black box. But the deeper we delved, the more unsettling the revelations became. The symbols morphed into star maps, tracking the movements of fleets that had long since vanished into the void. My heart raced as I recognized some of the coordinates. They were familiar. We had charted these paths ourselves just months ago. "What does this mean?" I whispered, a chill running down my spine. "Are we seeing our future or our past?" Myra's eyes widened, disbelief etched on her features. "These records date back to before humanity even existed. How could they possibly know our movements?" The implications were staggering. It was as if the black box had been an all-seeing observer, a witness to our history long before we were even a thought in the cosmos. "Maybe it's not just a record," I said slowly, piecing together my thoughts. "What if it's a warning, a snapshot of civilizations that rose and fell, echoing their fates in the fabric of time?" My voice was barely above a whisper, the weight of the cosmos pressing down on me. "Then we have to be careful," Myra replied, her brow furrowed in concern. "What if we're meant to learn from their mistakes? This could be a chance to change our course." But as we explored further, the data revealed something even more alarming. Flashes of distant battles, fleets clashing amidst the stars, entire worlds reduced to ashes. I felt my stomach drop as I realized the truth. We were on the brink of repeating the same mistakes. "Look," Myra exclaimed, pointing to the screen. A series of images appeared, depicting a once thriving civilization now reduced to desolation. The stark contrast left me breathless. They fought over resources, just like we do. They lost everything. I turned my gaze to the containment chamber, now a silent sentinel at the edge of our understanding. What if we're not just dealing with a record? What if it's a warning meant for us, something trapped here, desperately trying to reach out? The atmosphere in the lab shifted as we both processed the implications of our findings. We were no longer just explorers. We were custodians of a truth that could reshape our understanding of life itself. My fear morphed into a sense of urgency, pushing me to act. "We need to share this," I stated firmly. "We have to warn others before it's too late." My heart raced as I realized the enormity of what we were about to do. If this black box holds the key to our survival, we can't keep it hidden away. Myra hesitated, her eyes darting between the screens and the chamber. "But what if they don't believe us? What if they think we're overreacting?" "Then we show them the data," I replied. "We have proof of what happened before. We can't let history repeat itself." Just as I was gathering my thoughts, the lab's lights flickered. A strange hum filled the air, vibrating through the metal walls and into our bones. My pulse quickened as I realized the black box was reacting to our presence, the ancient technology responding to the weight of our discovery. Suddenly, alarms blared, and a warning flashed across the screens. "Incoming transmission." Myra and I exchanged a frantic glance, the realization dawning on us that we weren't alone. Someone or something was aware of our actions. "What do we do?" Myra gasped, her eyes wide with fear. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. We need to find out who or what is trying to communicate with us. If they know about the black box, they could be our only hope. In a flurry of keystrokes, I initiated the connection, the screens flickering with static before coalescing into a figure. A holographic projection emerged from the black box, revealing an alien being, its features a blend of ethereal beauty and haunting sadness. "Why have you awakened me?" the figure intoned, its voice resonating through the lab. "You tread a dangerous path." I could barely form words, but Myra stepped forward, her resolve shining through her fear. "We found your records. We need to understand. We're on the brink of repeating history." The alien's gaze pierced through me, its eyes filled with a depth of understanding that felt ancient. "You are not the first civilization to uncover this knowledge. Many have come before you, and many have fallen. The cycle is relentless." "What can we do to break it?" I implored, my voice trembling with desperation. "Embrace what you have learned," it replied, its tone somber. "Do not let greed consume you. Unite, seek understanding, and protect the stars. Only then can you escape the fate of those who came before." With that, the transmission flickered, and the alien faded from view, leaving us in a silence that felt heavier than before. I turned to Myra, the weight of the moment settling in. "We have to share this," I said again, the urgency returning. "We must unite our people and reveal the truth." Together, we rushed to the communication terminal, the adrenaline coursing through our veins. The fate of our civilization hung in the balance, and we were determined to make a difference. As we transmitted our findings to the fleet, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Perhaps we could break the cycle. Perhaps we could steer our destiny towards something greater. In the midst of the unknown, we found our purpose. And as I glanced back at the containment chamber, I realized that within its depths lay not only the history of the universe, but also the path to our salvation. If we could learn from the echoes of the past, maybe, just maybe, we could forge a future that resonated with wisdom instead of despair. The stars awaited us, and I felt a new resolve rising within me, ready to unveil the truth of our existence in the cosmic tapestry.